In Peru's Cusco region, at approximately 13.5 degrees south latitude and 71.9 degrees west longitude, lies a structure that fundamentally challenges our understanding of pre-industrial engineering. Every civilization leaves behind a story, written in stone and soil, but some chapters feel redacted. Peru, more than most, is a landscape of these redactions. Our journey begins here, on a plateau overlooking the city of Cusco, with a fortress that shouldn't exist. Its name is Sacsayhuaman. Officially, it is an Incan citadel, constructed in the 15th century. But official records and physical reality do not quite align. The complex is defined by 3 massive, tiered walls, built in a zigzag pattern. The building blocks are not uniform bricks. They are polygonal megaliths of andesite and limestone. The largest are estimated to weigh over 125 metric tons. That is the equivalent of more than 80 mid-sized cars. The quarries are located several kilometers away, across difficult terrain. The official narrative credits 20,000 laborers, using simple bronze tools, ropes, and log rollers. A plausible theory, until you examine the joinery. The stones are fitted together without a single drop of mortar. The precision is sub-millimeter. A sheet of paper cannot be inserted between them. This is not just careful placement. The stones, many with more than 12 interlocking faces, are fused together as if they were soft when laid. This has led to some less conventional hypotheses. The most persistent, and the most dismissed by mainstream archaeology, is a form of thermal treatment or vitrification. The idea that the Inca, or a predecessor culture, possessed a technology to soften stone. It sounds like fantasy, but it is a theory born from a direct observation. The known tools of the era simply do not account for the finished product. The Spanish chroniclers who saw it upon their arrival believed it was the work of demons. We prefer a more grounded approach. We look for patterns. The zigzag walls, for instance, are not merely defensive. Their angles are theorized to track specific solar and stellar events with baffling accuracy. It suggests the design was driven by a logic we no longer possess. Sacsayhuaman is an engineering problem without a satisfactory solution, a data point that corrupts the accepted file of history. But it is not an isolated one. Travel south, into the arid plains of the Pisco Valley, and the pattern of inexplicable precision repeats, not on a megalithic scale, but as a scar across the land itself. In Peru's Ica region, at approximately 13.7 degrees south and 75.8 degrees west, that scar has a name, the Band of Holes. Locally, it is called Monte Sierpe, the Serpent Hill. For over 1.5 kilometers, a trail of man-made pits marches across the barren foothills of the Pisco Valley. There are between 5,000 and 7,000 of them, each roughly a meter in diameter and up to a meter deep, carved into the consolidated desert floor. The precision here is not of interlocking stone, but of relentless, almost industrial repetition. A long-standing theory proposed they were storage pits, or kolkas, for the Inca Empire. Yet this hypothesis collapses under logistical scrutiny. This is one of the driest places on Earth, with no significant local agriculture to justify such a vast depot, and the pits themselves are too shallow and open to preserve goods. Current archaeological consensus points to a different function, a massive accounting system. The Band of Holes was likely a way to measure and record labor tribute, or mita, owed to the Inca state. Different groups were assigned sections to excavate, with the pits serving as a physical record of fulfilled obligations. The labor itself was the tribute. This reframes the site not as a failed pantry, but as an instrument of imperial bureaucracy, a data set of human effort rendered in stone. Like Sacsayhuaman, it points to a societal logic operating on an immense scale, a calculus of control we are only now beginning to understand. The mystery is not what it is, but the sheer administrative audacity it represents. In Peru's Amazonas region, at approximately 6.53 degrees south and 77.90 west, a unique form of funerary architecture is found on a sheer limestone cliff face. Here stand the Watchmen of Karagia, These are not statues, but sarcophagi, built by the pre-Inca Chachapoya culture between 1000 and 1470 AD. Standing up to 2.5 meters tall, each capsule is constructed from clay, sticks, and grass, then sculpted into a humanoid form and painted with distinct iconography. Inside, a high-status individual was placed, mummified, and set in a fetal position. For centuries, these figures have stood sentinel, their prominent chins jutting out over the Cubamba Valley. Their placement on a nearly inaccessible ledge presents a primary logistical puzzle, raising the unanswered question of how the Chachapoya hoisted these heavy, fragile containers into position. The function of the watchman appears twofold: to protect the deceased within, and for the deceased to project power over the living. They are guardians, ancestral effigies positioned to eternally oversee their community's lands. This demonstrates a belief system made manifest on a rock wall, where the burial of the elite served as a permanent statement of lineage and territorial authority. The prominent chins of the Karagia sarcophagi were a statement of lineage, a physical marker of elite status. But in the arid coastal desert of the Asia region, at approximately 13.83 degrees south and 76.25 west, we find evidence that suggests a different, more fundamental physical distinction. In 1928, Peruvian archaeologist Julio Tello uncovered a vast necropolis on the Paracas Peninsula, unearthing over 300 sets of human remains dating back as far as 800 years. The most striking feature of these remains was their skulls. They were massively elongated. While artificial cranial deformation was a known practice in many ancient cultures, the Paracas skulls present specific anatomical deviations that have fueled decades of debate. Proponents of an anomaly point to several key metrics. A cranial volume reportedly up to 25% larger than conventional human skulls, and a weight as much as 60% greater. The most significant claim, however, is structural. A normal human skull possesses a sagittal suture dividing the two parietal plates that form the top of the cranium. A number of the Paracas skulls appear to lack this suture entirely, presenting a single, seamless parietal bone. Mainstream physical anthropology posits that these features can be explained by the specific techniques of head binding applied in infancy, combined with the possibility of craniosynostosis, a condition where cranial sutures fuse prematurely. Yet, the controversy persists, amplified by contested DNA analyses, whose initial, sensational claims of unclassified mutations have yet to be substantiated in peer-reviewed literature. What we are left with is not a simple case of ancient body modification, but a persistent and polarizing forensic puzzle. The Paracas skulls are anatomical outliers, artifacts that challenge our neat classifications of human morphology and ancestry. While the Paracas skulls challenge our classifications of human biology, 350 kilometers north, in the arid Soup Valley of the Lima region, at approximately 10.99 degrees south and 77.52 degrees west, we find an even older site that challenges our fundamental classifications of civilization itself. This is Corral. Radiocarbon dating places its central pyramid construction at 2627 BCE, making it contemporaneous with the Great Pyramids of Egypt and the oldest known urban center in the Americas. For nearly a millennium, a complex society with a population estimated at 3,000 people thrived here, building 6 monumental pyramids, sunken circular plazas, and sophisticated irrigation systems. Yet, in over 66 hectares of excavation, archaeologists have found a glaring absence. There are no defensive walls. There are no battlements. There are no caches of weapons, no shields, no spear points. Examination of human remains has revealed a near-total lack of the traumatic injuries associated with warfare. The data presents a direct contradiction to established anthropological models, which often posit organized violence as a necessary catalyst for state formation. Corral appears to be a major civilization that emerged without a military. Its economy was built not on conquest but on cotton, specifically Gossypium barbadense, which it traded with coastal fishing communities for anchovies and sardines. Its administration was sophisticated enough to require the use of quipas, the knotted string recording devices found here that predate their use by the Inca by nearly 4,000 years. We have found their musical instruments, 32 flutes carved from condor and pelican bone. We have not found their swords. Corral is a societal anomaly, a blueprint for a large scale. From the silent record-keeping of Corral's knotted strings, we move to a far more audacious, and frankly more bizarre, form of data storage. In the Huarochirí province of the Lima region, at approximately 11.79 degrees south and 76.59 degrees west, the Andean landscape itself appears to have been written upon. This is Marcahuasi, a 4-square-kilometer plateau of volcanic rock sitting at a lung-searing altitude of 4,000 meters. For a century, this high-altitude desert has been the center of a stubborn geological debate. The conventional explanation is that the thousands of strange formations here are the product of millennia of wind and ice erosion on andesite tuff. The alternative theory, first proposed systematically by the explorer Daniel Russo in 1952, is that this is not a natural gallery, but an artificial library. Russo cataloged hundreds of what he identified as megalithic sculptures, depicting not only animals native to the Americas but lions, elephants, and camels. He claimed these were the work of a lost global civilization he named the Mazma, who left this record for a future humanity. The centerpiece is the so-called Monument to Humanity, a 25-meter high profile that, depending on the time of day and the angle of the sun, appears to shift between the faces of different human ethnicities. Geologists have a simpler explanation. Pareidolia, the human brain's tendency to see patterns, particularly faces, in random stimuli. They point to the lack of any tool marks, quarrying sites, or associated archaeological remains. And yet, the sheer density of perceived zoomorphic and anthropomorphic shapes in this one concentrated location is undeniably striking. This leaves us with a compelling question. Is this one of the planet's most extraordinary concentrations of coincidental erosion, a geological Rorschach test on a massive scale? Or is it the faint, weathered signature of a people for whom we have no other record? A civilization that wrote its history not on papyrus or clay, but chiseled it into a mountaintop, leaving it for the sky, the sun, and us to try and read. In Peru's Cusco region, at roughly 13.16 degrees south and 72.54 degrees west, the technology that allows us to peer beneath the earth is being turned on what is arguably the most recognizable archaeological site on the planet. For over a century, the official narrative for Machu Picchu has been straightforward, a royal estate for the Inca Emperor Pachacuti, constructed around 1450 CE and abandoned roughly 80 years later. But this tidy explanation has always felt incomplete. Since the early 2000s, independent research teams have begun to deploy non-invasive geophysical survey techniques, mapping the bedrock upon which the citadel rests. Using a combination of ground-penetrating radar and electrical resistivity tomography, they have revealed a series of significant anomalies. Beneath the principal temple, scans indicate a large, concealed chamber, its dimensions consistent with a high-status tomb. More controversially, data collected by the French engineer Thierry Germain suggests a series of sealed doorways and hollows exist directly behind the primary masonry of the royal compound. His analysis of the radar returns points to the presence of metallic deposits, fueling speculation that the undiscovered tomb of Pachacuti himself lies just meters from the millions of tourists who pass by each year. The Peruvian Ministry of Culture, however, remains unmoved. They rightly argue that a digital anomaly is not sufficient grounds to begin physically intrusive work on a site of such immense global importance. This leaves us with a blueprint of a second, subterranean Machu Picchu, one of hidden passages and potential crypts that exist only as data plots. The evidence suggests the Inca were masters of concealing not just pathways, but entire structures. This tantalizing proof of a hidden dimension to a known city begs a much larger question. If this is what they hid beneath their most famous estate, What might they have built and then deliberately erased in the vast, unmapped wilderness beyond? In the remote Madre de Dios region of southeastern Peru, centered roughly around 12.5 degrees south and 71.5 degrees west, the question of what the Inca could hide in the wilderness becomes a tangible, obsessive pursuit. The scans beneath Machu Picchu confirm a capacity for strategic concealment on an architectural scale. The search for Paititi is the hypothesis that they applied this same principle on a geographic one. The legend is well known, a final refuge, a city of immense wealth. But the search is not based on legend alone. It is fueled by tantalizing, if fragmented, historical data. A key 17th century missionary report held in the Jesuit archives in Rome describes a city rich in gold, silver, and jewels, located east of Cusco. More concretely, within the 1.71 million hectares of Manu National Park, we have the Pucharo petroglyphs. Discovered in 1921, this 30-meter-long panel of enigmatic carvings has been interpreted by some researchers, including Thierry Germain, as a potential map or narrative pointing to the city's location. The symbols defy easy translation, but some depict figures and patterns with no known parallel in officially documented Inca art. Today, the search has moved from jungle machetes to satellite data streams. High-resolution imagery of the Megantoni National Sanctuary, a protected area adjacent to Manu, has revealed clusters of pyramidal shapes and unnatural right angles hidden beneath the triple-layer canopy. These formations, some covering several hectares, are statistically improbable as natural geology. Expeditions attempting to reach these coordinates on foot have been met with impenetrable terrain and the documented presence of uncontacted indigenous tribes, turning archaeological inquiry into a matter of life and death. Paititi, if it exists, is therefore not simply a lost city. It is the final data point in the Inca strategy of disappearance. It represents a civilization attempting to surgically remove itself from history to survive a conquest. The search is no longer for gold, but for the ghost in the machine, the blueprint of an entire capital city, designed and built with the primary purpose of never being found.